Welcome to our Latin Trails webinar today. We are here to discover Antarctica. This is an introduction to the last continent, and it is my pleasure to turn it over to Marcel Perkins. He's the managing director at Latin Trails, here to take us on this fantastic educational virtual journey. So Marcel, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Um, Thank you for joining us. My name is Marcel Perkins from Latin Trails, and today we're going to talk about Antarctica, the last continent. And I'm gonna get you started. Well, just a few photos here, but I'm going to tell you about Latin Trails first. We're a business-to-business company. We are a DMC and tour operator. We're based both in the U.S. and in South America. We have our own offices throughout the region, over 20 years of experience. We focus on creating guest experiences, customized itineraries. We have a 24/7 concierge department that looks after our guests as they're traveling throughout the region. And everything is done with training for agents and having our agents being the rock stars. Now, we have our offices of support in Ecuador, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, and Argentina, and of course, our operation in Antarctica as representatives of 4 expedition ships. Um, and I'll get into that right now, introducing Antarctica. Well, Antarctica is, for many, the last continent they're visiting. For others, it's really in vogue now, and they want to go because it's the right time. Well, whatever be the reason, here are some of the reasons to visit. Midnight sun, these beautiful sunrises and sunsets, glaciers. This is a winter wonderland, icebergs, and of course the wildlife. Now, being the last continent, you can see here, it's been, there's famous explorers that have gone to Antarctica, including Shackleton and Amundsen, and all that history and lore that's behind it. Um, the remoteness, and of course, as I mentioned, the wildlife. If you like penguins, this is the place to see penguins. Sea lions, fur seals, elephant seals, great whale watching, and other bird life as well. Now, here's a list of bird life there and wildlife and all the different types of penguins that call this unique place home. The Adelie penguins, the emperors. Well, emperors are very hard to see. Having said that, my last trip, we did actually spot a pair of emperor penguins down by Marguerite Bay inside the polar circle, which is quite uncommon. So all those surprises are also part of Antarctica. It's flexible travel. It's being open-minded and letting many things surprise you one after another, because there's nothing that really could prepare you for this type of trip. You're always going to have something more that you're going to be seeing or unexpected, but that really makes it great. So continuing with that, the location, Antarctica is in the southern hemisphere between 60 and 90 degrees in latitude. Um, the seasons you can travel to Antarctica. Well, you can travel to Antarctica between November and March. This is the summer there, and it is when the weather is permitting. Now, in terms of temperature, you're talking about 25 to 30 degrees, so it's like winter in North America, but with its temperatures and varying by wind factors and other things like that, like snow and ice rain and all that. But all of that makes it a very special journey. Now, there is subseasons as well. So, going from penguin nesting, hatching, seal pups, whale watching, seabirds, all these. And of course, as I mentioned, the trips start in November on the cruises. And then depending on, the time, for example, if you want to see penguins nesting in November and December, is great. Then January, they're not nesting anymore because you have the hatchlings coming in through January, February. And by March, you already have the juveniles all around. So it is a cycle. So any time of between the season, it's great to visit Antarctica. You might have different purposes, but if you want to see seal pups, for example, November, December are ideal. January, they're a little bit more grown, and in February, March, you have all mainly adults, or not adults, but juveniles. Then whale watching, yeah, the beginning of the year is great. Well, I mean, of the season, November, December, but February and March is the peak season for that. Then seabirds and all that. So you have different subseasons, and here's a little bit more on that. Um, Early November, December, the wildlife. It's also all the snow is completely white because the adult penguins are nesting. They're building their nests. The snow has not been trampled around by all the baby penguins and all that. So it's a great time for camping as well on the snow. Then the high season, now, because early and late season, we consider them shoulder seasons. Now, the high season is December and January. Here you have all the hatchlings of the penguins, um, great activity amongst the leopard seals, hunting and all that, orcas and all that. Yeah, it's a great time to visit. Of course, it's close to the holidays. And then the late season is February and March. But this is when all the whales are arriving. So if you're into whales, we could have 20 whale sightings in one day. You have all types of whales, humpback, minke whales, fin whales, even the possibility of spotting blue whales. So that's a little bit about the subseasons and visiting Antarctica in those times. Now, getting to Antarctica, what are your departure ports and what are your options? Well, one of the main departure ports for cruises has always been Ushuaia. This is in the southern tip of Argentina. And if you're going to Ushuaia, you're going to be crossing the Drake Passage. Now, trips that go from Ushuaia go the basic trip or the we would say the classic Antarctica cruise is 10 to 12 days. Now you have 2 days each way on the Drake Passage, 2 days going in and 2 days going out. It could be a shake or it could be a lake. If you get a shake, well, you have even in the most harsh conditions, you'll be required sometimes to even stay in bed. Lie down throughout the shake, and it's not just seasickness; it's the movement and all that. This is something we're very open about. I mean, it is rough, but with seasickness pills or an ear patch or the wristbands, that helps take away the seasickness. The thing is being prepared for the 2 days of being sitting down, but you have lectures, you have a lot of information going through, you have the guides to talk with, you're mingling around with other guests on board, and the food is delicious. So the Drake is actually very livable. And then you have the possibility of a lake. We had a shake on the way in and a lake on the way out on the last trip. On the way back, we counted 25 winged albatrosses. We counted several humpback whales. We spotted orcas. We spotted macaroni penguins throughout the Drake. So we were doing counts together with the ship's ornithologist and doing citizen science. We'll get a little bit more into that. So it actually can be part of the entertainment and it is really part of the experience. The other option is actually going from Punta Arenas in Chile. If you're departing from Punta Arenas in Chile towards Antarctica, it's a 2-hour flight. You're skipping the Drake Passage, you're landing on King George Fifth Island, and you're boarding the ship there. And then you're cruising around the sub-Antarctic islands or the South Shetland Islands, the Antarctic Peninsula, and you're spending the same amount of time in Antarctica, the 6 days more or less exploring, while you're skipping the Drake Passage. So it's a shorter trip, but there is a price tag on it, and you have to realize that it's weather conditioning. There could be delays if the weather is inclement and not good. You would be waiting to depart towards Antarctica or waiting to return. So you have to have that flexibility. Now, here are the different itineraries that are offered in Antarctica. You have the classic peninsula, the Antarctic Circle, the Weddell Sea, and then the itineraries that include South Georgia and the Falkland Islands. Now, the classic itinerary is going to go 10 to 12 days. It's the one we spoke about. Going out of Ushuaia, crossing the Drake Passage, we spend about 6 days on Antarctica and on the islands. The Antarctica Circle itinerary. This was the last itinerary I did. It's 12 to 14 days. We go beyond 66 degrees, crossing the Antarctic Circle. You meet the ocean confluence, and the temperature drops immediately as you cross the circle, and the ocean temperature drops 2 degrees. You're actually reaching, this remote area, and even it's a remote trip already. I know I'm being redundant on it, but it really is exciting. You get to see points like Marguerite Bay, and other places like that as well. Weddell Sea, this is a different itinerary. It's a specialty itinerary where you get to see the tabletop icebergs. Don't get me wrong, you will be seeing giant icebergs throughout, but here you have the really icebergs that are as big as a skyscraper, almost in that sense. So it's really, I mean, they're very big, bigger than your local mall sometimes. Um, and that makes it a really special trip and the possibility of seeing emperor penguins in the Weddell Sea. Then finally, the longer itinerary, 15 to 21 days, that includes South Georgia and the Falklands. This is a little bit longer, and we'll go over why we should take that itinerary, even though it's a little bit more expensive, a little bit longer, but it's quite unique. Now, the classic Antarctica, I'm just going to go over some pros and cons. It's a classic route, great wildlife, great landscapes. I mean, if you're doing one trip, if you're doing this trip, you will have a great um, amazing encounters with penguins. You'll have great wildlife spotting. You won't be missing anything. Cons, the Drake Passage. There's high demand in the peak season. Now the pros, then you have the option of doing the same classic one with the fly cruise. Of course, you avoid the Drake Passage, but the cons are costs and weather can cause flight delays. Then we have look, really the unique remote experience. This is the second itinerary, actually. This is the Antarctic Circle. We're going a little bit further south. We're going to an area that is, quite unique and quite special. It's pristine. You will be seeing more whales, more ice, less ships. Well, Antarctica is remote, so you don't really see. We've encountered, in all of my trips, every time I go down, I see one or two ships at most. Distances are a little bit longer now. You're spending 2 days more in Antarctica, but those 2 days are going to be navigating further south, crossing the Antarctic Circle. So that's to take into account unpredictable weather, and you have to be flexible for itinerary changes. Then the Weddell Sea. Again, this is a little bit longer. The possibility to see emperor penguins amongst the pros, but the cons, a little bit longer trip, less dates and ship availability because it is a very specialty trip. So you're going to have to choose among the dates when the ships are going to the Weddell Sea. Finally, South Georgia and the Falklands. One thing about South Georgia, and I'm going to be very brief, it's the place on Earth with the highest concentration of wildlife anywhere. Rich biodiversity, king penguins, elephant seals, amazing scenery. And the Falklands, a historic place, very beautiful as well. A great amount of penguins with penguins that you don't see in other areas. So you have a lot of time navigating as well, longer navigation, longer days, and the price is a little bit higher. But what makes South Georgia and the Falklands special? Well, on South Georgia, you have the king penguins, and the population is over 1 million. So it goes beyond the eye. It will be beyond the scenery in that sense. Then you have chinstrap penguins, gentoo penguins. You do see these on the Antarctic Peninsula, along with the Delhi penguins, which you won't see on South Georgia. At least are not the highest possibilities. But here you have also the macaroni penguin, and you have the elephant seals, and of course all the other seals as well. So it's great. The scenery is amazing, and it really is a historic place with which relates, to Shackleton's expedition, and just one of the most remote places, but one of the most special places on Earth. So it's a once in a lifetime. Stunning landscapes as well. So I really recommend it, but of course it's going to be a long trip. On the Falkland Islands, again, you have king penguins, macaroni penguins, gentoo penguins, but you also have the rock hopper and the Magellanic penguin. So you have actually 5 species of penguins on the Falklands. And of course, the historic sites, one of the most remote places where human presence is, and some traditions there, and also it's really it's a great trip there. A little bit longer, but again, as I mentioned, it's worth it. It's worthwhile. Then direct flights to departure cities. Well, the departure cities, as I mentioned, are Ushuaia and Punta Arenas. But to get to Ushuaia, you have to arrive in Buenos Aires in Argentina. You could also arrive to other cities in Argentina, but Buenos Aires has flights from Miami, New York, Atlanta, Dallas, and Houston, nonstop or with connections. And for arriving to Santiago in Chile, you have flights from Miami, New York, Houston, Atlanta, and Dallas. Again, these are all the airlines that fly there. And then to get to the Ushuaia, you can fly from Cordoba, Rosario, Buenos Aires, and Calafate. So actually, you can combine with these other destinations in Argentina. And of course, as a tour operator, we can help you combine with Iguazu, Mendoza, other destinations to create a full itinerary. If you're going to Punta Arenas from Chile, you have flights from Santiago, Puerto Montt, and Concepcion. So these are the options of getting to the departure points towards Antarctica. Now, let me just get to the next slide. And the different types of ships. Now, one thing that is important to note about the ships that go to Antarctica. Any ship that carries more than 500 passengers is not allowed to disembark anybody in Antarctica. So if you're going on a ship that has more than 500 passengers, travelers are not getting off the ship. It's a scenic cruise. It's not, I wouldn't consider it an Antarctica cruise. It's a Southern Ocean cruise. Now, what we prefer and what our favorites are the smaller ships. between 50 to 100 passengers or 100 to 200 passengers. Because on the Antarctic Peninsula and on the islands, the subantarctic islands, you cannot have more than 100 guests at one time on the ground. That's a very important fact to keep in mind. Now, there is ships up to 500 passengers where you can disembark. But if you consider the amount of people and the different turns they're going to have to take, you're going to have less time off the boat the larger the ship is. The smaller the ship is, you have more time off the boat. On our expeditions, we are offering 5 to 6 hours off the boat every day. And that is an important fact. Now, small ships, as I mentioned, you have 50 to 100 passengers or 100 to 200 passengers. One fact about ships that are up to 200 passengers is that 100 passengers can be on Zodiacs and 100 passengers can be on the ground, and then they switch. So you don't have to take turns for expeditions, and you will have all the time. Now, consider that I would say that 60% of the best wildlife encounters I've had in Antarctica are on the Zodiac. So Zodiac rides, all that are very important and very we have luxury expedition ships that have their own private balconies. So here I'm featuring the Ocean Victory and the Ocean Albatros, of course, and we have the Magellan Explorer and the Magellan Discoverer, which we also represent. Um, Now we follow IATA regulations, and here are some of the most important ones. Passenger limit for landings, which I mentioned, 100 guests at one time at a shore landing. Guide to passenger ratio, one guide for every 20 passengers at least. We keep it down to 10. Ship size and landings. Ships carrying more than 500 guests, I mentioned this, are not allowed to land. Site guidelines, well, you have IATA approves the sites, and the permits are emitted as we are there on location and by exploration by the guides and the expedition leaders. So the lines follow certain protocols, and this is for all ships. All ships are mandatory. There's safety briefings, and there are strict supervision of all the operations. What is life on board on an Antarctic ship? It's a bit different than on other cruises. An expedition cruise, the focus is on the wildlife and on getting off the boat. So you're going to have early breakfasts, 7:30 a.m. Okay. If I would tell you that all breakfasts are at 7:30, I'm going to be lying. There's some that are 6:30 or at 7 because you might have great weather early in the morning, and the weather in Antarctica can change or shift any moment. You could get winds that go up to 60 miles per hour, and then it just makes it cancels a landing. Or if you see that weather's coming in a little bit later in the day, we're going to get off early. So the expedition crew is amazing to accommodate around the weather and try to get you all your excursions. Now, this is just a sample day, 9:30, 1:30 p.m. Zodiac cruising. Part of that is Zodiac cruising, and the other part is landing. So you'll have an approximate of 1 to 1.5 hours on the Zodiac, 1.5 hours on the ground in the mornings. Then you have lunchtime on board. If it's a nice sunny day, no wind, no rain, no reason to stay inside. We have outside decks with meals. Of course, then in the afternoon, again, a second round of excursions starting around 2:30. Zodiac rides, landings. And then in the afternoon, even in between excursions, we have lectures and workshops. There are mandatory lectures like, the Zodiac briefing where safety briefing. There's a safety briefing on board as well. So you get to know the ship, the muster stations and all that. Safety is really one of the top precautions. Now, you have both options on meals, a la carte and buffet. Usually lunch is going to be buffet because we want to get things expedited as soon as possible so you can get on your next excursion. Dinner is going to be a la carte. Now, there's several gourmet dishes that are going to be served, but there always is a buffet, in case you have a special diet or anything, that's always going to be available. Additional salads, additional items on the menu there are there at all times. And then finally, you can unwind at the bar. Entertainment, I'll have to warn you, it's not like on a big ship. It's actually, you're going to be part of it. No, the crew really prepares, live music. They do their best to entertain guests on board, but it's not professional entertainment. It's actually where you can take part. It's a lot of camaraderie, a lot of friendships develop here on board the ships as well. Meals are delicious. They're sourced in a humane and passion with taking into account that all the things that you need to take into account when you're going to a remote destination where you have everything. And usually on the ships, you have sea chef or different providers that have top chefs on board as well. As I mentioned, buffet breakfast and served dishes a la carte for dinners. There is formal dinners, but formal here is really meaning that, you have a nice shirt on or anything. It's really the cruises are not going to be uber elegant or anything like that unless you're invited to sit with the captain. You'll be expected to have to wear, a nice shirt. Now, throughout the day, you have tea stations and snacks, so you're really never going to be hungry. Cabin types and amenities. There's cabins with private balconies. These would be the suites. There's also interior cabins, exterior cabins. Now, at the moment, we're actually, with our operations as it is now on our own ships, we don't have interior cabins, but we do offer other ships that might have them. There's suites and there's balcony cabins. From your private balcony, you can step outside and see how, observe the whales that are nearby the ship or anything, because there's always wildlife times. Then you have triple cabins and quad cabins for all these are options on board. This is one of the suite bathrooms. As you can see, it has all the amenities that are necessary. This is what gives you a little bit more of a standard. Again, they're all comfortable. In general, what you're going to find is, a private bathroom with shower, your hair dryer, eco-friendly toiletries, everything's biodegradable. Daily housekeeping, individually controlled heating, an in-room phone for wake-up call, and 20V electrical outlets, in some cases 110. So be prepared to bring an adapter. Um, on board, you're going to, well, part of the cruise, you have the Zodiac excursions, the lectures, and the briefings. Now, gear that's provided. All boats are going to offer you the boots on loan and a parka on loan. The parka is the windbreaker jacket or the outside shell. And on most cruises, we offer the puffy jacket, the interior one, the warm jacket as a gift for you to keep. There's an onboard sauna, an observation lounge, multilingual staff, and a medical clinic on. Now, depending on the ship, you have a spa on board, so there is that possibility as well. Doesn't want to, after doing an Antarctica plunge, coming back to a nice spa treatment after going through, a warm sauna. That's really one of those special moments. Social areas include gym, if you want to work out, yoga and wellness. One of the crew members is one of the guides, usually is a specialist in yoga and wellness, and will be there to teach us and guide us through these workouts. Again, this is a picture of the sauna. There's a library on board usually with great amount of, well, I mean, on all these boats, yes, with books on Shackleton, on Amundsen, and all the Antarctic exploration, even, up to the date Antarctic exploration. Of course, the bar area and a gallery. Now, these are souvenir shops, basically. Now, anything you forget might be found here. Sometimes they run out and there's not, the stocking is not there. I found that, well, we didn't bring water bottles on this last one. And yeah, they didn't have them for some because they had sold them all out. So that can happen. So just make sure you go through a good checklist and you bring everything you need. The mudroom, this is a very important area where you leave your gear after excursion. You're not carrying your gear to your cabin. And this is where you put all the heavy jackets and all that there. So actually, when you're on board, you really don't need to be wearing heavy clothing. You come down to the mudroom, you change, you're off to your excursion, then you're back. Excursions and activities. Well, shore landings. Taking note that shore landings, they can vary even on the same day, but the idea is that you get to see the different types of penguins, the Gentoo, the Delhi, and and the beautiful. I'll get it. It's going to slip back to my mind, but yes, all these types of penguins, or we're looking for historic sites. We'll visit state Antarctic stations, research stations. There's some that have been abandoned. This is the historic part. We'll look for places where we have geological traces. There's stones with infiltrations of copper and things like that, and all these beautiful colors on the stones and all that. So there's so much more than just seeing the penguins and the wildlife. And of course, the seals. Now, take into account that on the shore landings, the walk is easy because you're walking just a few feet. All the wildlife is right by the coast. If you're going inland, it's because you're looking for a vantage point and you want to look, from above the island or on the Antarctic continent. You want to have a better look at the scenery. But really, these are easy walks. So a level of fitness that you need for the cruise is not that high. It's actually, I would say, it's moderate to easy. Now you have to be able to walk on uneven land, be able to walk maybe about a mile on unassisted, and all that. So that's to take into account. Another thing, there's no bathrooms in Antarctica. You cannot sit down. Stooping like this is not allowed anymore because of the bird flu. So we're not allowed to touch the ground really. So that's to take into account. Zodiac rides. This is actually one of the most important activities where you'll be coming close to wildlife. You'll be cruising between icebergs, and this is where you'll spot the seals, orcas, and all the marine life that's there. That's amazing. And penguins are in the water too sometimes. And of course, hiking up to a vantage point where you can have a great view of the scenery. Now, the polar plunge. Let me clear the water here. 50% of everybody, half the ship did the polar. We have people in their 70s and their 80s doing it. So it is actually become one of the most popular activities. Uh, it is cold. You do feel like, small needles coming through and all that. But what surprised me most on my last polar plunge, I forgot that it was so warm. That was the only thing that surprised me. I swallowed a lot of so because I just jumped in and I was excited to do it. But the cold was there and all that, but it was really fun. And when you come back, you have a nice cup of hot chocolate or a shot of vodka kind of waiting for you. So it's really one of those unique activities. The guides are always engaging, giving you information on safety, on the wildlife, always there to share anecdotes. They've been doing. What was funny was, well, not funny, but it was really cool for us was that when we spotted the emperor penguins, there have been guides that have been down for 13 seasons and they haven't spotted them. So we were very lucky on our last expedition. Onboard lectures, as I mentioned, with didactic materials, sharing all the details of citizen science. And this is an important part of our Antarctic expeditions. We turn it into an educational experience. You're here with specialists in several areas, ornithologists, geologists, and they all have a project. And you're able to participate and help scientists with information about Antarctica. Scientists cannot afford to have expeditions down to Antarctica on a regular basis. So they rely on commercial cruises like the ones we were offering. And we share information with them, like with the Sunny Disk or with checking out the Antarctic water, going to the microscope and sharing the protozoaries, counting whales with Happy Whale, one of the most popular programs. Then we've also expanded it to the Galapagos Islands with our other cruises there. Um, Cloud counts. NASA can monitor the clouds from above, but we help them monitor them from below. So all this is an important part of studying Antarctica and learning, and optional activities. Now, one thing about citizen science as well. One of my favorite lectures has been about Antarctic krill and how Antarctica helps capture most of the carbon from our planet. It's important to learn about it, love it, and if we can contribute to Antarctica, and if we change our habits after our trip when we're back and consuming, not consuming products that have krill in them or use krill as dye and all that, amazing. We've done the job because we are gonna help our planet in that sense. So really, that's one of the main things that you're going to learn coming back from Antarctica. Optional add-on activities: skiing, kayaking, stand-up paddle boarding. Yes, you can do this. It's an easy activity for all levels. There's instructors, and of course, you have a dry suit. If you fall in, you're going to be okay. Ice camping. This is a little bit more on the beginning of the season up to about beginning of January. After that, all this beautiful white ice is now turned into mud with the penguins there running around it. So it's on the beginning part of the season. Photography workshops. Now, you do not need an SLR for Antarctica. You can take one if you're a great photographer and all that, and you want to learn a little bit more. You want to participate in a workshop. Go out on the first Zodiac that goes out and come back last with a specialist guide that knows all the tricks on getting the greatest photos. But you can also do it with a cell phone. My last trip, I just had my cell phone and I got some really amazing pictures. A lot of pictures we're sharing here have been done with the cell phone. So here's the boats that we offer: the Ocean Nova. This is for 79 guests. And we have all these small features. It's one of the smallest ships in Antarctica. The Sea Venture. This one is for 139 guests. And as you can see, these are small ships. The Ocean Albatross and the Ocean Victory. These are for 189 guests. Again, small ships. These have the private balconies. They're luxury. So we start with the Ocean Nova, which is like a tour Spirit. Sea Ventures closer to a first class, and the Ocean Victory and the Ocean Albatross are in the luxury class of the small ships. Now, we also offer the Magellan Explorer, which is a luxury class ship that is offered with the fly cruises, and it only carries 73 guests on board. There's a new ship that's coming out, the Magellan Discoverer. It's coming out next year. And again, it's going to be with the fly cruise. So if you want to avoid the Drake Passage, you want to offer luxury to your guests, these are the options. And again, additional ships we can offer. We work with all the ships that go to Antarctica, actually. As an operator, we know the different ships. We can help you choose the right ship for your passengers. We do have wholesale contracts and we can offer you a good commission on those as well. What to pack? Now, packing is essential, but in the sense that not bringing too much, but not bringing too little either. I learned that, wool socks are the best thermal underwear. To be honest, with $20 Uniqlo underwear, the long underwear, we were fine. That's all we needed, a regular shirt, a fleece. What's important is you have waterproof pants and waterproof gloves. You will get splashed when you're in the soil. Water just jumps off, there's wind, all that. So you want to be waterproof. You don't want to get wet. Extra pair of gloves important because your gloves might get wet. You want to have the smaller gloves so you can handle your camera or your cell phone, and the bigger gloves if it gets a little bit cold. Now you can also bring those carbon patches that you can put inside in between the two gloves. You can't put it directly against the skin. Then a nice scarf, keeping your ears warm is important. A beanie, sunglasses. The sun glare is very strong. Now, waterproof boots and all that, that's given by the ship. Now, camera, extra batteries and memory. Batteries run down really fast in Antarctica because of the cold weather, like in any winter place. Sunscreen and personal medications. As I mentioned, what tips ships typically will provide, we will provide waterproof boots, parka expedition jacket, uh, the inner puffy jacket, trekking poles upon request. Of course, shampoo, conditioner, body wash, towels, hair dryer, and laundry services are available. There is Wi-Fi on board as well with Starlink, but it has a cost. We'll get into that too. Now, for this type of trip, you have to be prepared physically and mentally. Yes, you have to be in good shape, but not you don't have to be an athlete. You can stay active before the trip. Yoga helps as well. Be prepared for isolation and extreme weather changes. One day it could be sunny. In a few minutes, there could be ice rain. So you have to be, and then an excursion could be canceled because of that. So you have to be ready for those unexpected changes. When you're going through the Drake Passage, if it's a nice, smooth passage, you can be out on the deck counting wildlife, as I mentioned, or you might have to be in bed, almost tied in because of the movement. So those are things to take into account. Be prepared for that isolation for the long trip. Flexible with itineraries and the weather, and bring your own personal entertainment and books. Consult with your doctor before the trip. You're in a remote area. So if you have health problems, you want to make sure you have your medicine, you have everything there, and you're ready. Consider seasickness pills or patches. Stay hydrated all the time, and sun protection. Those are the things. Now, another important thing, the political board, trip cancellation insurance is important. These trips are non-refundable. So if you have to cancel for any reason, you want to have insurance on it. Medical, and you should get it in your own country. Most of our travelers are from the U.S. Having mentioned that, if you have travelers that are, you have a family that has travelers that are not U.S. citizens, they have to book the cancellation insurance in their own country. They cannot book a U.S. With a U.S. carrier or supplier in that sense because they can book the medical evacuation insurance with a carrier in the U.S., but the cancellation insurance only in the country of they are nationals. That's an important thing to take into account. Now, you have to have medical evacuation insurance of at least $120,000. Now, you're in one of the most remote places on the planet. This is beyond saying, but if there's a medical emergency, you want to have to be able to cover that helicopter right out of there because that's the only way out. Or the ship has to turn back and you are stopping the cruise for everybody. So that's really to take into account, and that will happen regardless. If the helicopter cannot arrive, the ship would have to turn back. So these are things to take into account. Um, and insurance is mandatory, not just important. IATA regulations, again, we went over these. We follow the Madrid Protocol and the Antarctic Treaty that minimizes environmental impact. If there's a location where there was, if you spot some wildlife that is sick or anything, 5 meter distance, but usually it's a 1.5 meters. That is the main regulation. So this was related to the bird flu at some point. Now, of course, if there's bird flu present at the landing site, you're not going to land on that site. There's many sites. So please take that into account. You cannot collect any stones. You cannot a drop of dirt or anything because your boots will get washed upon your way back. You can't leave anything in anyway. You cannot bring food on your excursions. As I said, there's no toilets, no bathrooms, or anything like that. So that's important. And of course, we promote educational briefings and low impact vessels, which are the ships that we're offering. Sustainable design, wildlife protection, and of course, educational programs. Now, carbon offset programs, all the ships have these in place. The Ocean Nova is one of the super green ships, very strong and very flexible in the sense of its small size allows it to go into smaller coves. Again, the Sea Venture is also an eco-friendly ship. The Albatross expedition ships have been designed with an X bow. It makes them very easy on the environment in the comparison to other ships. Biodegradable products, no single-use plastics, and all the ships have MSC certified seafood that is sustained that has been harvested sustainably. Now the Magellan and the Explorer and the Discoverer, both ships are using e-fuels. Well, the Magellan is operating, the Discoverer will in the future, and they're investigating how to use this type of fuel on their engines with aviation fuel in the future, so that they actually have a smaller carbon footprint. Now, remember, these are being offset on one part. The other part is in science, and you making an impact on your way back by being a better, global citizen with the things you learn about Antarctica when you come back as well. Budgets and extra costs. Now, a typical expedition cruise 10 to 14 days, depends on the ship, anywhere between 7,800 to 15,000. A little bit more of a luxury trip, and this includes some of the fly cruises, 15 to 30,000. Flights to the embarkation point between 800 to 1,800, depending on the time of the year or how far in advance you're able to book. Pre and post cruise accommodations, 1 to 2 nights, maybe $100 to $250 a night for standard hotels. There are luxury boutique options, hotels that will go up to about $600, $700, $800 a night. You're staying at a wine resort in Mendoza, which we can organize for you. You know, you have some that are $600 a night, $700, $800 a night for a suite, but you have these beautiful wine fields next to you, warm weather because we're going into summer, and you have a beautiful spa and all that. So it's worth adding on and letting us help you include that in the trip. Mandatory medical insurance and all that. The cost of getting it is between $200 and $500, which is minimum compared to the benefit of having that type of insurance. Now, gratuities are suggested $10 to $20 per day per person, about $300 per cruise. You could rent polar clothing both in Ushuaia and in Punta Arenas, as well as camera gear if you don't have it. Premium beverages, $5 to $15 a drink, really not overly priced at all. Wi-Fi packages can go $50 to $150, depending on the longer cruises to South Georgia and the Falklands. Of course, the package for the Wi-Fi is a little bit higher. Laundry services, again, $10 to $30 per service. It's a little bit more than at your regular hotel, but it's not exaggerated to be taking into account the remoteness and everything. Now, optional excursions can go $150 to $1,000 per activity. When I talk about $1,000, we're talking about a kayaking, 1 week of kayaking added to a cruise, which is you'll have kayaking every day and all that. So it's the full activity. But if you're doing a day kayaking, it could be anywhere to $150 to $300 for that day kayaking excursion. Souvenirs and personal expenses, well, that's up to you. But yeah, all that is calculated in. We have some frequently asked questions. Just to let you know and cover this, and all Antarctica ships have stabilizers. But if there's a rough drake, it's not going to make a difference. And that's also to take into account. Seasickness remedies are available aboard, especially the tablets. Those are the ones that help best from what I've learned, actually, in my personal experience. I mean, you might have other ideas there with the wristband and the ear patches. There is a doctor on board. Now, if it's for regular consultation, it's within doctor's hours. But if there's an emergency, of course, they're there at all times, but you have to take into account that there's a very small basic clinic. Cabins that are best for avoiding motion sickness, center of the boat and on the lower decks. Drake Passage, how long? 2 days each way. Can you be on deck on the crossing? Of course you can. If it's not too rough, you can. What do you do on rough days? You have so many beautiful briefings. Now, we had scientists invited on board. On our last trip. They were studying the colossal squid. This is an important deep sea animal that has never been photographed. A live one has never been photographed. So they had a submersible. It was a special with this cable that was about, if I'm not mistaken, a few hundred meters or more, and they would let it go all the way down. They actually got back images of many deep sea fish and wildlife, but we did not get the colossal squid this time. We had a celebration. We had to interact with these scientists. They gave us all their insights in how they had been studying this unique species for many years, and how they would, see samples, or how they would study other fish, deep sea fish, with their projects, and how they had built this submersible and all the challenges they had. So you really get to A lot of information, a lot of scientific information to interact and learn about Antarctica as well. Not just, this is not just going down there and having drinks and all that. So there's a lot of learning on these excursions. There's options to avoid the rate passage. Yes, you can do a fly cruise. Now, is a visa required for Antarctica? No visa is required for Antarctica itself, but you need a visa for Chile or Argentina. That's important. Um, passport validity requirement 6 months beyond the travel dates. As we mentioned, we talked about visas already. Can you see the aurora australis? That's a question there. Well, the aurora australis or borealis in the northern hemisphere, it's in the winter. The aurora australis would be mainly in the Antarctic winter. The possibilities are slim. You can see them in November, maybe at the beginning of the season or at the end of the season around March. That's really the times you would see it. What it causes, it's the Earth's atmosphere near the pole, the solar particles that create these lights. Uh, Colors and shades, we know all about that. Now, minimum age. Cruises accept 8 and above. On our last group, we had a small group of kids. Now, take into account if kids are traveling, you have to bring their own gear, the boots and the outer shell. It's not provided by the boat because they don't want to guarantee these smaller sizes, and they're giving a discount. So this is one thing that's important. There's a certain weight and height requirements, 1.2 meters or 3.9 feet, and at least 30 kilos. This is because of the weather as well. And of course, an adult who has to sign away. Now, consider, you're traveling with kids, you're bringing down all the equipment, you can donate that equipment later. In Ushuaia or Punta Arenas or on the ship, for example, because if kids come and a boot size doesn't fit, they might have a donation from another child that was there before, but it's not a guarantee. And as I said, minimum age is 8. To be honest, the kids had the best time. They were out on the deck every day, every citizen science session outside, counting birds, counting clouds. They were part of it. So they loved it. They learned so much. So really, it's great. Now, there's a discount for children under 12, not guaranteed, depending on availability. 5% for children under 12, 20% off this child, if the child is a third traveler sharing a cabin with 2 family members, which are adults. Depends on availability and all that, but usually you're going to be able to, you will be traveling. If the child's traveling with just one adult, it's only going to be 5%. So you have to take that into account. Then, how does an Antarctic cruise compare with other expedition cruises? Well, Antarctica is the most remote destination. It's an extreme polar adventure, no human interaction almost with any, people living down there. We might go by one of the research stations. Usually they do not let us disembark there. It's only for scientists. We can visit, old stations that have been abandoned, but the real stations usually no. Because they're going to be spending sometimes the winter all the way down and they want to avoid viruses or anything in that. That's also important to take into account. But it's a wildlife place like the Galapagos, easy access, open all year round. Nature and science exploration, you do interact with local hosts and naturalist guides. You in the Galapagos, you get the swim, you get the snorkel. That's 50% of your experience there. Then if you go to the Amazon, it's also year round. You have a lot of cultural interaction because you visit indigenous tribes. So it's a different type. These are different types of expedition cruises. This is what compares. Trip extensions. We invite you to combine it with Argentina, go Sioux Falls, combine it with Chile, Easter Island, other combinations, Machu Picchu, the Galapagos, the Uyuni Salt Flats, Ecuador, Colombia, and of course, you can check real-time availability in our partner section. This is, at the moment, we have online availability in real time for Galapagos cruises. We will have online availability for Antarctica cruises soon, but we have all the dates listed, all the departures listed for the boats that we're representing. And that's going to conclude my presentation. One thing we do have for travel agents, and we want you to be the rock stars, as I mentioned earlier, we can create the website for you. So we have all these programs ready in our database, and we can actually, on a unbranded domain, we can create a subdomain with your brand, your story, your contact information, and we can place all the trips, not just for Antarctica, but for all of South America, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, on this website, and we will have online availability and promotions there as well with rates and all that, rack rates, of course. And you can share this with your clients as well. We can also take out the rates if you request that as well. We have different options, and we can put only the programs you want or all the programs we operate on this website. So if you request that from us, we are able to create it for you. We'll send you the details about that. Our contact information is here. Also, we have training center on our Latin Trails University. We have it. It's a special website with trainings and recorded webinars about Antarctica and other things like that. Other destinations like the Galapagos, Machu Picchu, and all. So all that information is available for travel agents. And that's my presentation today. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks,
Back to
Marcel.
you,
So,
Lee.
yeah, thank you, thank you. That was terrific. I said it before we got on, but what I love about your presentation is that it gives us so many options. It's not just about one vessel. There's several types of ships and several experiences, and I think it just has been a wonderful overview. Um, I know you had a lot of your frequently asked questions there at the end. We had a few that came in, the boots and thermal gear and all of that. I guess that's something that one would submit ahead of time, right?
Yes, you
Size
would actually
wise.
send. Yes. So, for example, the sizes of the boots. I would usually, what we did is we sent half a size more because sometimes you're wearing wool socks and they're a little bit thicker. So it's going to be half a size larger than yours. And so on the first day, what happens is you get to try in the equipment. If it doesn't fit, they do have some spare sizes that they can you give it you half a size more, half a size less. So don't be afraid of that. If the jacket is a little bit too big, it's too bulky, they can give you a smaller jacket, the parka. But of course, you do have to be a little bit close to what you're requesting because they have a limit on it.
Mm. Okay. I know you talked about minimum age. Is there a maximum age allowed on the cruises?
No, we've had people in their late 80s, 90s. On my last cruise, we had a gentleman from the UK, and it was amazing. To be honest, he had a hard time walking. He was going very slow, but his comment was, I prefer to do this than being with a caretaker at my home, back in the Cotswolds. And I'm loving this. I'm loving this. I'm on this cruise. I'm enjoying this. Um, as you said, if you help me walk, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm going to go as slow as I can. I'm going to see what I can, and he was able to get in and out of the zodiacs. Of course, you have to be able to get in and out. You have to be able to do that. But, there is no maximum age. There is a minimum age because of, I mean, we're caring about safety, smaller children won't enjoy it anyway. And as I mentioned, there's no bathrooms or anything, no, on the islands. There's a lot of things that you can't do on the islands. So these are requirements, but I really see it as an adventure that anybody can take part in.
Yeah, that's great. Um, can you tell me a little bit about working with groups, working with Latin Trails to put together a group to Antarctica? Is that something you can accommodate?
Absolutely. You would send us a quick email with the details of the group, and we'll create a custom itinerary with pre and post excursions, all the details. And consider that, with groups, for every 15 guests that are paying, you get one free of charge space. So number 16 goes free always. Now, on some of the ships, depending on the ship, we have the policy of prorating. So if you have 10 people, we can prorate the discount.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're able to work on different things for groups. We can find different discounts, different perks. We've also been asked, for example, if we have a larger group, can they have their own private dining area, things like that. On certain ships, yes. Not on all of them, but on certain ships, yes, they can have a small area. We can have their brand. If it's a corporate, retreat, we can have that also. We've done that as well, and we're able to accommodate all that. So as I mentioned, we have a special. You will be working with a specialist, somebody that knows the destination, that has been on the ships, that knows which ships to choose for you, and that way they can help you organize the program.
That's great. And I would assume I'm thinking about some of the smaller ships that possibly even chartering an entire departure would be possible. Yes?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's all going to be availability dependent because if we have a ship that has bookings on a certain departure, we're not going to be able to charter because we
Hmm.
don't relocate guests to another ship or things like that. So, your booking is guaranteed. I mean, the purchase guaranteed. So that's what we're offering. So if you want to charter, you're going to have to contact, a couple of years in advance, maybe, because they do the ships, all the cruises are selling out.
Hmm. Yeah. That's great. That's wonderful. Selling out is what we want. That's good. Good, good, good. Okay, well, I think that we have answered all of the questions that came in. So this has been very thorough. I will make sure that we take the replay and get that out to everyone so that we, have that available to everyone. Let me turn it back to you now for any closing comments you might have.
Thank you, Lee. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm really excited that you were able to participate in this webinar. And considering Antarctica is an amazing destination, it's a place we've fallen in love with that we're really putting our heart into promoting. But it's important, in all our destinations, the Galapagos, Antarctica, the Amazon, is that you come with a mind open, a heart open heart to learn about the place and then share why it's special and how we can protect it, because that is actually at the very base of our trips. We are every itinerary we create is an opportunity to leave a legacy, because we are with your trip, you are contributing to our ongoing project always. We always make a contribution, and it's part of your legacy. And you can then contribute further. And as I said, come back home with different living habits that will enhance, it will reduce global warming, or protect different species. And what you don't know, you can't. What you don't know, you can't love. What you don't love, you can't protect. And this is why we want you to visit these unique locations.
I love that. That's such wise, so many wise words right there. So thank you, Marcel, so much. This has been great. We appreciate all of you for being with us today. Andrea, thank you for all your work in helping us promote this. So with that, we'll wish you all a great day and conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. Marcel,
Bye
thanks again.
bye.
Bye.